Anyway, Brad Johnson, the next thing I'm really curious to get your take on is you reported on the conference that was here with, I think, Lieutenant Governor speaking with, was it the Blackrock CEO, after following, a number of other comments that I guess were a little more contentious between Blackrock. So just kind of what's your take on that whole situation? Kind of give us the rundown based on your reporting from that.
Yeah, it's certainly an example of strange bedfellows, especially because Dan Patrick has been, at BlackRock's throat for years on the issue of ESG. And on this, though, he's like, we're aligned, and we've had good conversations, me and Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock. But the issue that they're talking about is getting more dispatchable power generation into Texas, namely ERCOT. And the reason we're in this mess is so ERCOT itself, it's not the amount of power, the amount of the price paid for power is not negotiated up front like in most of the rest of the country. It's kind of like it's a supply and demand curve. It's based on how much is available and how much is needed to is being pulled from the grid. The price changes by basically every 15 minutes. And because of that, this entire structure is dependent on these complex market signals, price signals, and it's created if you throw a wrench into it, it can get screwed up pretty bad. And that's what happened with these federal subsidies, namely the production tax credit. These wind and solar generators can get, it's like 2.6 cents per kilowatt hour generated from the federal government. And it makes the investments for wind and solar a lot cheaper, on top of the fact that they don't have fuel costs. So you literally have a scenario in which these generators can sell electricity at a negative price, and that has really affected the markets and the ability of more traditional forms of power that are usually more reliable from being built, because the capital, when the attractive financial investment is wind and solar, it doesn't want to go to natural gas. And so this is the problem that we've kind of run in from an ERCOT standpoint, as the state is just booming in population and economic output, all of which requires power, right? So in Houston, Patrick and Larry Fink convened a bunch of investors. It was basically an advertisement for this loan program that the legislature approved. It was on the ballot in November, approved by voters. And they're going to get, it's like a 60%, anyone accepted in this, it's going to get like a 60%, a loan amounting to 60% of the capital cost of a power plant, essentially. Basically trying to provide a counterbalance to the production tax credit and make it more financially attractive for these investors to build natural gas power plants. And what that really complicated string of events means is that it will be, the grid will be more stable when wind and solar don't show up, provided we build these power plants. Because if we're depending on wind and solar to make up the difference on a day, especially in the summer when the wind basically disappears, the sun goes down at sunset, you can have some pretty tight periods. And not only does that just cause general freak out, and understandably so, based on what happened, 3 years ago now, but also cost money. And because of the scarcity pricing, when there's a very small margin between the supply and demand, the price goes way up. And that's eventually going to trickle down to everyday people paying their utility bills.
So essentially, since government has disincentivized building anything other than wind and solar, we're now using government to incentivize building the other side, because we've got to balance it out somehow. Is what we're doing.
Yeah, and that's basically right. Yeah, exactly. And Patrick sees one thing that sent a lot of shockwaves into the industry. The average person won't give a crap about this, but it would affect them. Is that he said, if this loan program does not bring on enough generation, the state might have to build power plants, and that happens elsewhere. But it doesn't happen here, and it would drastically change. We already have seen the financial balance, the market itself, screwed up greatly by the government getting involved, this being the federal government. This would be, the state government getting even more involved and picking winners and losers. And that's what the people already in the power industry now are very wary of, very afraid of. But Patrick's position is, I don't care how we do it. We just have to get more power plants online. And if this is what does it, this is what does it.
For a state that doesn't love government subsidies, we sure love government subsidies.
They're everywhere.
It's unfortunate.
Well, we need to fortify our grid so that Greg Casar can attach it to the national grid.
To the big naturals.
Yeah.
AOC is what I'm referring to. What? I got some smiles from Charles and Brad, and I got a groan from Michael.
The groan was from all of us. He was just expressing it for us.
Okay. Well, whatever, guys. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Not every single one of them can land, but I'm going to keep trying, especially on the moon. So, what?
The law of averages.
Exactly. The law of averages. I think I've got a pretty high average, to be honest, but no pushback. Yes. So, see? Look at that. All right. What were we talking about? Well, Brad Johnson, do you think that the Connect the Grid Act presented by Greg Casar and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, do you think that that's going to go anywhere? And if it does go somewhere, how quickly does Texas secede?
No, it's going right in the trash bin. That's going nowhere, especially in a Republican-controlled House. But this idea has been talked about a lot, and it's really gained steam after 21. There's all the people that want federal oversight of the grid, and they feel that's the only way to run things. And that's probably, that aligns politically with more progressive ideology. I don't think it's just progressives, though, that think that's a good idea. But how Texas isn't going to secede. It's not going to.
I'm not saying that I'm not saying that they should or that they will, but I'm saying if they take our grid, that's a big one.
We're going to complain on Twitter, and then nothing's going to happen. We'll be like, yeah.
Well, it's because we're going to have. You think that the subsidies now for wind and solar are bonkers. Wait till federal government connects the Texas grid to their grids, and then what happens? It's going to be nothing but wind and solar. That's the deal. They don't care. They don't care if our lights went out for a week, 2 years in 2020. They want that Green New Deal, right? Don't you think?
Yeah.
Well, I know Michael and Charles agree, but Brad Johnson?
Yeah, I think that's probably at least portions of the Green New Deal is something they want. And we saw the LNG stuff that the Biden administration did, pausing that. That's a pretty big shot across the bow, I think, of not only the oil and gas industry overall, but Texas and how important that is here.
Yeah.